Welcome back, my favorite gamers and developers. My number one reason why I love Fantasy Grounds is it makes combat efficient. Seriously, how much time have we spent doing the math after the dice hit the table? If you play World of Darkness like me, one attack is four rolls. One to hit, one to defend, one for damage, and one for soakage. That's a lot of time spending just to do one punch to the face. Fantasy Grounds does all of this for us, or at least it gives us the opportunity for it to. It takes all the math, it simplifies it, and this way you can get back to doing what you really love, roleplay. Now, I've made arguments before about how combat is also roleplay, but I feel you know what I mean. Sometimes if you're spending more than 3 to 5 rounds in combat, that could be an entire session for the night, and maybe you wanted to tell a little bit more story than just that. So, this is why I wanted to be able to manipulate the combat tracker. Let me show you what I got. I find this kind of funny. I get really excited after I build something, and I want to tell all my friends about it, but most of my friends aren't developers. And so I show them, and I'm like, hey, look at this. I've built this number. And they're like, cool, you added a number box. Okay, yes, it is just a number. But it took a little bit to get here. And you'll see when I get over to Ruleset Wizard, the amount of stuff I had to do to get there. Also, the amount of time it took me to figure out how to get that far. But yes, I added a number here. And now that I have it, in the future, I can add more boxes and more numbers just by pretty much copying and pasting and just resizing a little bit. For my werewolf project, I'll probably be adding spots to calculate the character's rage, gnosis, and willpower. Also, I'll probably have some kind of health fields that they'll be able to check off on. Also, I've added an actions bar. This right now just adds the very generic string and number field. But in the future, what I'm planning on doing with this, and I'll be doing this in the template, is on the NPC sheet and also on the player sheet, but it'll be on a tab that only the GM can see. It will be able to add actions, and then over here, the GM will be able to double click and it will roll whatever the action is. When it goes into production, this will be a little bit more sophisticated based around that system. And that's why we're not using that standard roles field where you have to make sure you use the correct lingo, and then that way you can click on that and that's what will roll. But the action field does collapse, show, I can collapse all, show all, and I do have this thing box linked up between the combat tracker and the character sheet. So, how'd I do it? Well, you guessed it, Ruleset Wizard. So, this is my combat tracker entry. There's a few things that you have to add, and I recommend going through the forums where Psychedelics puts out some information on this. But you need a field called CT entry. This over here is just the left control. You're going to have a right control, a right anchor. You're going to have a link. This is my number combat. This is the thing that I was wanting to link up between here and the character sheet. Of course, I brought over the initiative results. And then I brought in my activate action icon. And I utilized the sword that was already in RPG Core by basically just using this advanced template. Then I also duplicated the sword's icon out here. And then here's my window list. And then my add button, and of course my frame. This was a little bit interesting to figure out. You had to also think about order of operations. The frame had to go last because it's based off of where the icon and where the add button is. So this was just a few things going back and forth to actually finally get right, to show you what I've got. And yes, this whole part is outside the standard bounds for up here. This is going to expand. This window here will expand to include this once it's visible, but it starts off invisible, and then once the button is clicked, that's when it displays. Over here on the host window, I brought in the label name I just used it looking at the code for the Combat Tracker host. I saw that label name already existed, so I reused it, and I also used the label for the initiative. And so that's the name here, initiative. I changed it to the word turn because I was having a problem actually getting to come over, and I wanted to see, was I using mine or was I using the one that was actually already there? So by changing the word, that made me realize, okay, I am using my current one. And then I added a new label for thing. I didn't have a good name for it, so that's what we're calling it. And then these three buttons are the effects, the spacing, and the targeting. And I had to be a little creative with this. When I grabbed these, I inherited them, but they were hiding behind this new frame that I put in. So on initiation, I make sure to bring them to the front. And then this is my new button, and I had to put a bit of code in here. And please download it, check it out to see what all I was doing. But basically, it's just once you click it, it's going to unhide all of them or hide them. And then also I have another argument in here to check if it's visible, and the button from here calls that. Something else that's quite interesting is the name field that's on here is anchored to the right anchor, and it was crashing into my number controls right here. So I made a template of the name field and changed it to be the parent of the initiative. But strangely enough, the client side doesn't have the same problem. I'm able to make a new field that the client side can anchor to. I don't know why the host side can't. And if anybody actually does know why, please contact me, let me know. Or show me how I can make it to be something other than something that exists on Core RPG. And there was a couple other things I added, but you can check those out when you grab this. Another issue that I was running into, I was having a really hard time calling this button from inside here. I don't know why. I was able to do it pretty easily over on my quest sheets and on my link sheets, but for some reason, I just had a heck of a time getting from here back up into here. So I went with a little bit lazier of a method. I made a new Lua file that basically on open, it will register this window to the file name cthost. And then when I'm in CT entry, I can call cthost, which I do right here, and access that control. I don't know. Maybe somebody else will have an easier time with it. It was a little difficult for me. This is my action detail, and this is for the client side and the client entry. And this is what it looks like for them. So the client can see their turn, their thing, and the rest of the stuff is hidden just like it is on Core RPG. And then you could scroll this and you can see it's changing here as well. It's interesting that everything locks over here on the client side, and I actually can't figure out why. I've tried a few things to unlock it because I would like the players to actually be able to click certain things at times during combat, but maybe there's a reason for it, but I would really like a way around that. So, what do you think? Hopefully when this goes into production and with the right rule set, the combat tracker can help us get through combat a little bit more efficiently and get back to more story. I'm excited to see how far we can actually take this in our games. So anyway, until next time, keep gaming and keep developing.